Hey gang, how are you doing? Oh yeah? Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for letting us know. John, did you hear that? They love Video
I
Night
did.
Beyond, the first episode of the spin-off from Video Night where we discuss the sci-fi fantasy movies of 1980. And guess what this episode's about, everybody? More, but from 1981! I'm ridiculous. Four films from 1981. They're in the sci-fi fantasy kind of, that world of beyond. That's the whole point of the show. And what are the four films we are discussing, John?
We are discussing Dragonslayer, Excalibur, Clash of the Titans, and Escape from New York.
Woohoo!
One of these things is not like the others.
Which one do you want to start with?
You know what? Let's do Dragonslayer.
Okay, the one I just crammed in last night. I just saw it like a year ago, but I wanted to watch it one more time in case I forgot anything. And good God, Disney really fumbled the ball on trying to launch an older skewing. Like their movies were always like PG at most, and this is really riding that line of almost R. And they got nervous, so they co-financed it with Paramount and then sold them half the rights. So now it is a Disney co-production, but Paramount owns it completely in America.
Yeah, because it's like I think it was Disney was international release, and it's like through like Buena Vista, I think, and then Paramount did all the domestic releasing.
Yeah, their stuff in this, I am shocked that it wasn't R. I mean, there's some serious gore.
Yeah, especially at the end with that where the princess gets eaten by the dragons. They're just munching on
this
munching her foot off and stuff.
Family films in the 80s were different, kids. Wow. I mean, the fact that Raiders of the Lost Ark is considered a PG film is shocking to me when people's faces melt off.
Yeah, I actually was talking to my niece about that, where it's just going, yeah, there's this PG movie, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and at the end of it, it's like, there's all these faces melt off, and it's things like, that sounds awesomely scary.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to watch that sometime.
Yeah, it's, I think it's a fascinating film. The special effects, for the most part, are absolutely top-notch. They don't have a whole lot of flaws, except for when they have the green screen, or what we call it back then, it wasn't green screen.
Blue screen.
No, it was before that. It was like reverse projection or something like that, where they would have the screen behind them, and then they would take a camera and project the image. I think that's
rear projection.
Rear projection. Thank you. I couldn't remember. That stuff doesn't really hold up that well. But God, the puppetry, the makeup that they use is phenomenal.
Yeah, like the weakest of like any of those dragon effects really is just the dragon model that they have when they have to have it breathe fire, and it's very obviously that they just have a flamethrower in the dragon's mouth.
Right.
It just kind of mouth hangs open and just this flame thing, and there's no movement there. It's just Rod Puppet with Rod Puppet with the flamethrower. Whereas, like you look at the model, like the little claymation-ish model that they have, and it's so fluidly moving and stuff. I was reading about what they were doing with that and like the rigs and all that stuff that they had for it. Just phenomenal.
Yeah, this is Matthew Robbins is the director. He's in that whole world of the George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Francis Ford Coppola. He's part of that group, but he just never really had much of a moment to shine because this tanked. His next film, The Legend of Billie Jean, tanked, but thankfully Spielberg hired him to do Batteries Not Included, and that did well.
Yeah, what's funny about this is this had a graphic novel adaptation that Marvel did, and I had that because
you do.
Cool. I don't have it now. I did have it when I was a kid, and I remember it like completely. Like, it was like a little, almost like a novella book. That's kind of how it was bound. It was not like a comic book, or even what you think of as a trade paperback these days. It was just a little little novella-sized book.
So like early graphic novel, right?
Even smaller than that. Like I mean, you've seen. Yeah, like I said, like it's like a little paperback, not like microscopic, but like a choose your own adventure size book.
I didn't know this. Matthew Robbins was the writer of Sugarland Express and did additional writing for Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So that's what got him into the whole field of like possibly becoming a director. So yeah, most part though, he is still a writer. He's doing a Pinocchio remake because God, there hasn't been enough Pinocchio movies. Jeez.
No, we need more Pinocchio.
We need more King Arthur movies. We need more Robin Hood movies.
Well, no, we don't need any more King Arthur or Robin Hood. Those have been played out. But Pinocchio, that's the story that will stand the test of time.
Hold on a second. I'm actually interested now. You want to know who's directing it?
Who's that?
Guillermo del Toro.
I don't know if I want that or not.
Yeah, so at least it's a bigger director than I expected. We're going off on a tangent here, but this is just one of those classic stories. You read about in all those like fantasy novels, and all the video games in the '80s seem to be somehow centered. The sword and sorcery games. Saving a princess from a dragon. You see it right there. Just a young, naive boy who hasn't got his skills, but he's got the heart for it. It's almost like this and Legend inspired Legend of Zelda.
Yeah, what's funny about this is also our hero, this little sorcerer's apprentice dude, who he's out to save the princess, but he doesn't want the princess.
Right. I don't know who the girl is, but she is fantastic.
Yeah, it's the whole obvious. I'm a girl disguised as a boy. I am not a girl. No, of course not. I am very obviously not a girl.
The only time they ever pulled that off successfully was Pitch Black.
Yes, very much. I totally agree on that. So, that was... Yeah, she's a good actress. It's just she did not portray that very well.
Sadly passed away in 2004. Dang. But I think what is interesting about this movie is that it looks like where it's set. You know how you see some of these sword and sorcery movies where it's clearly shot in Canada or New Zealand, Australia, or cheap garbage places. The way that like Corman would shoot them in Argentina and stuff like that. This one clearly was shot on location, and I think it looks really good. Even though it's really muddy and wet, very very wet, but it looks authentic.
Well, it looks like fantasy films of this time, which you kind of have this mix of realism mixed with studio stuff. But you had, they went out and they shot in, not necessarily someone's backyard, but they went out into the woods and actually did some of the stuff. So they had all these people just covered in mud and filth and stuff, walking around, and it adds a level of authenticity to some of these films that, like The Hobbit, does not.
Yeah, so many of them are clean. If you look at them, you're like, ugh. I mean, Lady Hawk. I love Lady Hawk, but it looks so clean. It doesn't feel like it's in that place at that time.
Yeah, there's all two of the films that we saw kind of have that authenticity. Well, actually, no, technically three of those films we saw do have that authenticity. One of them definitely is much more clean.
Yeah, it's I say Dragonslayer, it did not make its money back, but I think it found a big audience later on video, and this one I think holds up the best out of the fantasy ones.
Oh yeah, this is definitely not of the films we saw. I don't think it's the best one, but definitely of the fantasy. This is the best of the fantasy
right
ones.
And so our second film is Excalibur, and that has more like the way he uses lighting and he sets up stuff. It's almost over dramatic. It's like a soap opera. It's trying to be so hard to be epic that sometimes it's really campy. I get what yeah, go ahead.
I swear, I was watching this film and going, is John Borman actually just trying to make a comedy? Is he trying to out-Python the Pythons?
Yeah, he's kind of a lunatic. You watched Zardoz. You saw how insane his filmmaking can be.
Well, it's like, the moment is like, once he does the "Oh for tuna" drop, I literally wrote, this is a fucking joke, right? Hell, and it's like, hell, this fight sequence would improve with yakety sax. Then I went and looked up yakety sax on YouTube, turn down the volume of anytime there's a fight scene, start playing yakety sax. It improves every fight scene.
Yeah, it's star-studded of people who weren't stars at that time. It's like, oh, I know him, Gabriel Byrne and Liam Neeson, and I think, was it Patrick Stewart, I think, is in this, and Helen Mirren. Yeah. And you're all like, wow, these guys weren't named at the time. Well, yeah, I forgot. This movie was not expensive for, who it tried to cast, but it looked like it cost a lot because he's constantly setting up these scenes that look like they're from a dream. They're true, fantasy in more than one way.
Yeah, it definitely, and you have that, he loves his green light.
Yes.
Everything is bathed in green light, and it gets really annoying really quick.
Yeah, and this is not necessarily about King Arthur. There's a reason why it's called Excalibur. It's all about that sword and everybody. It contacts with, the lust for it and using it to try to do good. And it's completely about the sword.
Yeah, I mean, well, based off the death of Arthur, the old legend of King Arthur, which is basically just a bunch of short stories over the course of this guy's life, and that's kind of how the film is, because there's no real transition. It's just, we're here with Uther Pendragon. Now Arthur and the Sword of the Stone. Oh, now Lancelot.
Yeah.
Now...
Yeah, it's very episodic. And, when you watch Conan the Barbarian, there are some episodic elements to it, but it still feels like there's a constant flow going through. Whereas this one has these fits and starts. And the only thing that's really interesting that keeps me going, because I think most of the actors are fucking atrocious, is Nicole Williamson as Merlin, and even sometimes he gets silly and campy, and I'm like, is this intentional? What the fuck is going on?
I was starting to, I need to find my note on this, but I was starting to figure out who would these people be if they were the Pythons, and I went, Arthur's totally Eric Idle, Merlin is totally Graham Chapman.
Yes.
And I think I changed it at one point where I went, I think I said, now Arthur is going to be played by, where did I say? It was like, basically, I kept changing the cast as I went along.
And Michael Palin has to be Morgana.
Yeah, and here's the thing, it's like, this movie is horny as hell.
Oh, yes.
I'm going like, I really think John Borman was working out something in his life, because I mean, it's not just hetero horny. It's very homoerotic.
Oh yeah.
There's a point where seriously, I'm pretty sure Lancelot wants to nail Arthur because he is kissing Excalibur in a very suggestive way.
Yeah, I'm just licking the blade on.
Yeah, it's I literally going into this film, I literally only knew two things about it, and that was the the sword coming out of the water for the first time, and then the fact that it had Helen Mirren in it, and I was very looking forward to that stuff.
Yes.
I really wanted to see young, super hot Helen Mirren as opposed to modern day super hot Helen Mirren.
No arguments here. Completely agree. So that one, I think if you have a sense of humor, you're going to like it. If you take this dead serious, it's going to be weird. It's going to be a rough journey for you.
Yeah, it's not a good film, but if you just go into it this is the most serious comedy of all time, yeah, it's definitely filled with... There's so much humor in this. Oh my god. Again, Nicole Williamson's vocal performance... Arthur started to be played by John Cleese at one point. That was it.
By the way, whoever plays Arthur is just... I think it's Nigel Terry, is just the worst.
Nigel Terry, yeah.
Such a goofball performance.
I started laughing my ass off because, it's after he pulls the sword from the stone and people are kind of arguing about it. He runs off and Merlin catches up to him. And he's got this derp face the entire time, just... He's going... You didn't do a second cut? Second take?
No. This works. You sure? Okay.
Yeah, it's no, don't. You don't want to do this one.
Yeah. All right, what is our next film?
How about Clash of the Titans?
How about no?
Yeah, I recall your text, not your text, but your tweet about that.
Oh my god, I was so sure it was gonna fucking rock because I saw it as a kid and I thought it ruled. And I saw a little bit of it about 20 years ago. I go, oh, the special effects are pretty rough, but it's still pretty cool. And then I know everybody talked about when the remake came out and how the original's so much better and how they get rid of TikTok. I think that's the name of the owl. And
Bubo.
Well, I don't know what the hell I'm thinking then. I'm thinking of Return to Oz, TikTok. And I was like, okay, well, it's got to be better than, because I didn't really care for the 2010. I'm a big fan of Wrath of the Titans for some reason. I don't know why. But I watched this and I sat there going, oh dear God. Oh, this is long. This is long as fuck. Then it's so episodic and just, it took forever. And then finally the Medusa scene happens and it picks up speed. But there's so many weird ass shit in this.
Well, part of it's like nothing really happens in this movie.
Oh my God, there's a lot of jibber
really until you get. Yeah, and okay, I pretty sure I've only seen this film in the context of school, like in middle school, and instead of teaching us anything, the teacher just said, we're going to watch Clash of the Titans over like 2 days. But I do not remember the boobs and butts in this movie.
Was there nudity?
Like, granted,
I don't remember any nudity.
Yeah, in the beginning of the film, after when the kids they wash up on the island, the mother and the child wash up, Perseus and whatever.
Well, maybe you watched the edited for television version.
Maybe, but and there's also like a shot of butts when they're about to sacrifice the princess at the end too. But it's like, then again, I did think about, well, we did see the Franco Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet, which has Juliet topless at one point.
We watched Rumblefish, and my teacher did not realize how R-rated that was. This is considered a classic and unholy genre film because it's Ray Harryhausen's last big production. And yes, some of the stuff he has is unique. I get that, but it doesn't meld. And a lot of times they're using it, and I don't understand why they're using it stop motion. The guy who plays Sarek, Spock's dad, isn't he the main demon villain guy?
I think so. Yeah. Well, originally it was just going to be a puppet, and they decided to actually go and cast an actor. So there's just a couple of shots where a guy's, just anything that's where a close up of his face or the up from chest up. Yeah. And that's it. Everything else is stop motion for him.
I just thought, how hard is it to get a guy in a suit, because he does have dialogue? How hard is it to get a guy in a suit and just move his tail around? We just watched Dragonslayer where they made, that puppet so articulate, and you couldn't pull this off. And just the balancing between the two. And when they fight giant monsters, hey, in the 60s it looked kind of cool. 20 years later, it looks like hell.
Yeah, literally, the only good thing in this film is the Medusa fight.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I seem to remember the fight with the Kraken at the end being longer, but that's 10 minutes at most.
Yeah, I mean, it seemed less than that. But here's the thing, is Harry Hamlin, and a lot of the problem with these kind of movies is the main character is a dud. I've seen Harry Hamlin. He's been good in stuff. And he's very good in the Medusa scene. It's almost as if someone else took over to direct that. He's just, everybody in it's so fucking dull or over the top.
Now, well, part of it's okay, I used to know more about Greek mythology and stuff like that, but and maybe this is how it was delivered in the original stories, but Perseus kind of seems to be a shitty hero because he's just gifted everything. Here you go. You get a hat, and you get a hat of invisibility, and a super kick-ass shield, and an awesome sword, and I'm going to give you, I'm going to have you give this owl. And granted, he gets a mechanical version of it, but still, it's like, he doesn't actually earn these boons or anything through
you should have to work
being
for it.
Clever.
That's a bummer. It's not like, well, I guess it's before video games, because that mentality has kind of changed now. But because that was part of D&D campaigns, right? Is you had to go and earn the stuff, right?
Yeah, and that's all Tolkien-based, but it's still based off of all these sort of fantasy tropes where your hero had to go and actually earn these things from the gods. Gods shouldn't just hand you your awesome shit at the beginning of the story.
Right, like in Crawl, you had to earn it.
he's just kind of this weird-looking, lazy fuck who manages to just everything good just kind of happens to him. He's like the least effort for this guy. And yes, he does have to fight. He does have to fight little poor demon-looking dude who just got screwed over by the gods.
Yeah,
that should have been the hero. That guy got screwed.
Right, you should have made the villain the hero.
Yeah, he has at least a more interesting story. Percy is just kind of doodles his way through everything and finally just gets laid for his troubles. You want to talk about privilege?
No kidding. But seriously, that Medusa scene is worth seeing. If you don't want to watch the rest of the movie, just go to that. It's a 10-minute sequence, and everything in it, the lighting, the pace, the tension, is unbelievably good.
Yeah, that is the standout. That, hands down, everything about the Medusa scene is amazing.
Yeah, then that is too long and it's too dull.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Is like I was looking, going, it's just a hair under 2 hours, and it feels longer. It just paced so badly.
Our next film, I think, is absolutely perfect. I would give it an A+. It's my favorite John Carpenter film, who may be my favorite director. Escape from New York is fucking tops.
Yes. What can you say about Escape from New York other than it's one of the best, it is weirdly the most underrated, perfectly rated cult classic film.
Yeah, it's a weird line. I think part of it is because it's a little damaged by the sequel, which I'm fine with. It's not good, but I know why it failed. But people are like, oh, that one sucked. The first one must suck, too. And I was like, why'd you watch the second one first? I don't know, because it's new. I didn't realize it was a sequel. But I think the fact that it was tightly budgeted, but he had all the right people. There's no excess, which is what kind of damaged the sequel. It's $6.5 million, and just using very minimal practical effects and just a tight, scary story. I mean, this is a thriller, sci-fi action film.
Yeah, and what's fun about it is, okay, Kurt Russell's doing probably people are going to crucify me when I say it like this, but he's doing the most laziest impression of Kurt Russell. I mean, Kurt Russell's doing of Clint Eastwood.
Right.
He's just doing a Clint Eastwood impression, and that's it. But Kurt Russell does it so well, and the fact that this is a darkly comical film, because there's a lot of humor in this film that you kind of like, ooh, that's mean.
Yeah, everybody in it is weird. That's another thing.
Oh, my favorite character is I can't think of the character's name, but it's the Duke's right hand man. He's played by Frank Doubleday.
Frank Doubleday. I can't remember the character name though.
It's like Rodrigo or Rocco or something like that. It's something like that, and he's the weirdest looking bastard. Just kind of comes up, and he's the first thing that we see in New York, and he just kind of sets the tone perfectly for, okay, once you get into New York, shit's gonna be weird.
I love Cabby. He's one of my favorites. Brain is a fun Brain, and what was his wife's name? Played by Adrienne Barbeau.
Oh, Maggie. Maggie.
Yeah, and then we have, of course, a glorious short appearance by Lee Van Cleef. I'm trying to remember who else. Donald Pleasance as the president, which is weird, but they explained that it was supposed to be the love child of Margaret Thatcher and the American president.
And Ronald Reagan, yeah.
Ronald Reagan, okay.
But it's what's funny is also it has there's a lot of weird, interesting Cold War, and, kind of anti-communist sentiment, because you have the people who take over Air Force One are, talking about the imperialist United States and, how we're going to, how we must stop the terrible thing of this. And yet, it seems like there was going to be some sort of peace talks between the U.S., Russia, and China for some war that we never we only get like a cursory little bits and pieces of, and I'm very curious to actually know more about this. What was actually going on outside of this story.
Yeah, I'm wondering if, because there's been a comic book of this, and it jumps around in his timeline between the two movies. I wonder if they ever did a prequel, kind of to build that world before they shut down New York and the close aftermath. The only thing we ever get as a prequel is the cut scene that's on the Blu-ray where it shows him getting arrested in the bank robbery.
Yeah, I guess there was it was the novelization by Alan Dean Foster that goes into background and stuff where they talk about like Lee Van Cleef's character and Snake's while they're being soldiers in this war and all the stuff that's kind of going on with that, as well as even explaining a little bit more of that the woman that Snake meets in the little convenience store that gets killed in like one of the most awesome zombie sequences. That's not a zombie film.
Right? Yeah. It's close to it though. You can feel there's a little bit of Romero influence in here.
Yeah. It's like this whole thing was like shot in East St. Louis. Like there was a fire in like 76 or 77 that kind of lay waste to the area. So there was still a lot of abandoned buildings and just really run down. So instead of trying to shoot it in New York or shoot it somewhere else, they managed to actually find a place out here.
Yeah, and it's grimy and it's fun to look at and horrifying at the same time. This was a big hit, not just in America, but internationally. And this and The Road Warrior end up influencing so much of the post-apocalyptic genre for the next 20 years. Mad Max more because I think it was cheaper to do that because Escape New York you have to get like blocks to film it and it's a little more expensive.
Oh, the one of the best things in this is how they faked that wireframe model of the city.
Yeah, I had no idea. I really thought I thought it was early CGI, like just our Vectrex kind of style, but it wasn't.
Yeah, they had a model they built, wrapped it in like a green blacklight tape, and just had a camera fly through it, looking like it's a wire model.
Yeah, and isn't James Cameron responsible for designing these effects? Am I wrong?
Yeah. Well, I think so. Yeah, I know he was involved in the film. I don't remember if that was specifically him or not, but probably. Yeah,
because he was at New World at the time, and they were kind of a smaller special effects house, and that's how he got attached to it. Because this is an independent production. This is before John Carpenter goes studio, which happens the next year with The Thing. But he's still with these scrappy little studios like the Avco Embassy who don't have a big warehouse, of stuff to use or their own teams. They have to go out and, get other people to work for them.
Yeah, man. It shows both in, it's just how well, if you know how to get every single, penny out of your production, John Carpenter's time and time again has shown how to do this.
Well, I don't know about Ghost of Mars, but I'll let that one.
Well, later on, once he's given money, then money taken away at the same moment.
Yeah, I think he's more creative when he's on a tighter budget.
Yeah, well, that's how everybody is. You have to.
Yeah, I think it's an absolutely fascinating film, loaded with fun characters, and I said it's not action heavy like people seem to remember. There's only a little bit of action. Most of it's like a pursuit. It feels like early video game. The way it's all set up, you got to get through this and this and this and hide from here. It's a little stealthy, and grab this to get out of this. And it's really interesting how this, maybe not intentionally, but has an influence on video games.
It's very it's very obviously had an influence on Metal Gear because part of it's like that's specifically where Hideo Kojima kind of came up with the idea for
Solid Snake.
Solid Snake, the Snake Plissken.
Yeah,
which is also why in the second one he has Iroquois Plissken as a fake name.
That's funny. All right, so that is my choice of the four. Is that your favorite of the four?
That is my favorite of the four, yes.
Cool. So that is it for this episode. I don't know what the list is for 82 yet, or do we? I can't remember. Are we going to do
We do have the list, but I don't let me see if I can find our list for 82.
I have it. It's Blade Runner. I picked the director's cut, or the final cut, I think.
I was gonna do final cut.
Tron, Beastmaster, Dark Crystal, and I want to add a fifth one, if you wouldn't mind. We don't have to, but E.T. How do you not talk about E.T.?
It's been a long time since I've seen E.T., so I should probably see it again.
I think all of these are my voodoo except Beastmaster. I don't know how to get you Beastmaster. I had to pay $40 $40 for my Blu-ray collector's edition from Vinegar Syndrome.
Yeah, I'll find it.
Okay. All right, so that is it. Check us out on Facebook under Video Night Podcast, and where can we find you, John?
I'm on Twitter, musician, MYUZISHION. Come hit me up, talk about things.
All right, everybody, have a good night.
Later.